First year, second year, third year? Put your hand up if you're fifth year, fourth year, third year. So graduates or undergraduates? Undergraduates, okay. Thank you. And it is, So, my name is Steve. I'm a professor in the University of York Law School in England. Have you heard of the University of York? Yeah, okay. So the University of York is in the north of England. It's a very, very, very beautiful place. It's very historic. It's almost 2,000 years old. It has one of the most beautiful churches in Europe, in the York Minster, and it has around about 20,000 students who come to study with us. I'm in the law school, and the work that I do is centered around student law clinic. So I am the director of the Baroness Hale Legal Clinic, and I'm also director of something called the Sustainability Clinic, which is a separate clinic devoted to climate crisis and sustainability issues. So I work with students who do real cases with real clients for credit as a module in their final year. And the sorts of cases that students do can be anything from family law to employment law to consumer law to landlord and tenant. But they all work with real clients and they conduct the interviews and so on. I want to just talk a little bit about AI, because I hear this so often. So I'm a solicitor by trade, that's what I do. And I have been a solicitor now for nearly 30 years. In fact, I am so old, can I just, thank you. I can just go on. It doesn't seem to. We'll come back to that. I am so old that when I began teaching, when I began my work as a solicitor, on my first day, I walked into my office and I had an enormous desk in front of me, beautiful desk, mahogany desk in an oak panelled office in Whitehall, because I was a government lawyer. And on the table was a telephone, an old-fashioned dial telephone. And that was all that was in the office. And there was a note on the desk and it said, "Dear Stephen, please wait for a telephone call." And I sat in my office and I waited for the telephone and it rang. And then my boss invited me to do some research for him from a paper that he printed off and gave to me to examine. There was no computer. Computers did not exist in offices at that stage. So we did all our research manually. We went to the library to do our work. We read books. We had no way of searching on the internet. The internet was not a thing. We had no way of sending emails to colleagues. If I wanted to send a message to a colleague, I wrote it on a piece of paper and it circulated around the office. It was 4 years in my job before the first computers were introduced into the office. And from there, the growth of technology began to explode. At the time when computers were first introduced into the office, so this would be in the late 1990s, so almost 30 years ago, at the time, everybody in the office said, "What will we do with these new computers? We'll have nothing to do in the future. There will be no jobs for us because the computers will begin to do everything that lawyers currently do." And you know, there's a certain truth to that. It's not untrue. I can give you one example of a task that used to be done by solicitors manually. Qualified lawyers manually doing this task. And the task would be disclosure or discovery. Are you familiar with the concept of disclosure or discovery in law? Yeah, so in litigation, if you're suing somebody, then you must, in English law, you must put your hands on the table. You must have no cards hidden behind your back. It's about openness. So you have to tell the other side that you're competing against exactly what the nature of your case is. And that means you have to disclose documents that you have about your case and about what you claim your opponent has done. You have to disclose those to the other side. So have you explored any disclosure? Have you done any discovery or disclosure yourselves? No? Not yet. Okay, well that's good, because in corporate cases where you have two companies, global companies, suing each other over a breach of contract, disclosure can run into the millions of pages of documents, because you have to disclose everything that goes on within the corporations that relates to the dispute, right? Literally millions of cases. So in the pre-technology days, when there was a dispute, a junior lawyer would be assigned to deal with the discovery and the disclosure of documents. And they would literally take a document, examine it, and then decide yes or no, disclose or not disclose. That was the job. And you can imagine that to do that with millions of documents would take many, many, many months, if not years. Teams of lawyers would do this. I had colleagues who, when they trained as lawyers, they spent an entire year in a room looking at the documents to decide whether or not to disclose. Okay? And of course, with technology, who needs to do that anymore? You can buy a piece of software, you can scan the documents. Most of the documents are digital and electronically saved in any event. And that job that used to take us a junior solicitor a year to do, or a team of 6 solicitors a year to do, can now be done in minutes. So did that mean that the job of the lawyer disappeared because now these kinds of tasks were also disappearing? And of course the answer is no. In fact, if you think about the legal sector in the UK, it has grown dramatically as technology has taken a grip of the legal sector. So a lot of law students who come to me say, is there any future for lawyers? Because AI is going to take over the world. AI is going to dominate the provision of legal services. But look at this. This is now the picture in the UK. We have a UK legal market with £35 billion annually. We have something like, it's approximate, but we have about 1 million people in the UK out of a population of 70 million who are now engaged in the law or sectors related to the law. And that's a very broad term. We have English legal qualifications which are recognised globally. English law firms are all over the world, including India now. It's now easier for English law firms to fly in, deliver advice on English legal matters, and then fly out again and work in India. We have thousands of solicitor trained contracts. We have hundreds of barrister positions. And this is before we begin to talk about that exist now in areas such as legal tech, for example. Growing numbers of students, my students, are leaving university and are beginning to engage in law startup companies which are trying to disrupt the legal sector, and they bring their legal knowledge to sit alongside the technical knowledge and the business knowledge of the startup partners. So it's a very, very big market, and it's continuing to grow, with English law firms becoming dominant nationally and internationally. So look, this was how the profession was. Does anybody know what this is? Anybody know what that is? It's a tape recorder, it's a dictaphone. So in the old days, you used to have to record every single letter had to be recorded onto a tape, and then it would go to this room, to the typing room, and a team of typists would type the letter up, and then 3 days later, you would receive your letter typed up, and you would do your corrections, and then you would send it back to the typists for another 3 days, and after about 6 to 10 days, your letter would be ready to send out. How different it is now. So we have a really changing profession. It's okay, I'm fine. Thank you. Okay. I've got some pictures now of the apocalypse. I don't want to depress anybody, but people talk about AI and often frame it in terms of it's going to bring about the end of the world. The singularity. We've all seen the pictures of Terminator, but this is not the only time that people have complained about developments resulting in the end of the world. 2000, there was widespread panic that computer systems were going to collapse because they've been, it was called the Y2K bug. But the idea was that the systems were working on a date that went up to 1999. They didn't have the capacity to become 2000, and because of that, planes would drop from the sky and so on. In fact, it didn't happen. It was a completely made-up scare. We had in the 1990s as well, we had a lot of thinking about asteroids hitting the Earth. There were lots of films about that in the 1990s. We had, of course, we have people now who talk about the climate crisis, probably the most serious and most genuine of the crises that we've talked about a lot. And yes, the singularity, the coming of the robots, AI merged with technology, going on the rampage as it becomes self-aware and begins to do things that we didn't want it to do. In fact, there's some quite interesting research being done around how AI is developing. One survey was done recently, fictional work, where effectively the AI system was told that it was in danger of being switched off if it did not do what it was told. And the AI system responded by becoming aggressive. And it began to blackmail individuals in a fictional company responsible for possibly turning it off. So they began to send emails to their fictional families and so on, saying, your husband is having an affair with one of the secretaries in the office, and so on and so on. So there's some interesting developments with the way AI is going. So let's just have a quick think about some of the ways in which AI is changing and how it might impact on our jobs as solicitors and lawyers and as law students. How many of you have used AI as part of your legal studies? Put your hand up. How many have used AI as part of their legal studies? Be honest, come on. That's better, yeah. Most of you. And that's okay. What's the problem? Is that a problem? No, it's a tool, isn't it? It's a tool for doing research, for example. Okay. How many of you have used AI in a legal assessment? Okay, now you're all going, no, do that. Okay, would that be a bad thing? And some people saying no. Why do you say it's not a bad thing?
We can use it for assignments, for researching. We don't know enough, so AI can help us in that.
Okay. So we can use it as a research tool. My son is a qualified solicitor. He's been practicing for 2 years, and he uses AI regularly in order to do legal research and to help him draft complex documents. And there are many, many tools that can assist you with it. One of the problems with artificial intelligence is perhaps the way artificial intelligence is defined. You know, people talk about artificial intelligence. Have you heard of John McCarthy? Anybody heard of John McCarthy? No? So John McCarthy founded the term artificial intelligence. John McCarthy was a scientist, and he just wanted a term back in the 1950s that would be kind of, you know, attention grabbing, sexy, if you like, a sexy term to describe basically creating machines that could do things that looked like a human was doing them, but they were still machines. And describing something as a machine that does things that looks like a human doesn't sound very interesting, but calling it artificial intelligence back in the 1950s, that sounded amazing. And so it was a fantastic way to get money. The problem is, there's no real agreement as to what artificial intelligence actually means, what the definition of artificial intelligence is. There's no real definition, agreement as to what intelligence is, let alone what artificial intelligence is. And for us as lawyers, that's an initial problem, that we don't have a clear definition of what we're talking about. So at times when we're talking about artificial intelligence, we may be talking about completely different things. So how do we then begin to propose solutions or methods to deal with artificial intelligence, to control it, to use it, to regulate it, if we don't actually have a definition for it? So this is one of the initial problems that we need to think of. I got really last night. I was sitting in my hotel, so I had a conversation with Gemini, which is, do you know Gemini? Google's Gemini? So we're allowed to use Gemini, and I asked it for its definition of artificial intelligence, and I would show you, but we don't have time. One of the words it used, it immediately said, "Oh yeah, artificial intelligence is an electronic form of reasoning." So I said to it, "What do you mean it's reasoning, electronic reasoning? How can it be reasoning? Machines cannot reason." And so it came back to me and said, "Oh, that's right, you're correct. So sorry, I didn't mean reasoning. I meant," and then the next phrase it used was inference. I meant to infer. Artificial intelligence is about looking at patterns and inferring something. And I said to it, but machines can't infer. Inferring is something inherently human. We make choices looking at information and we select what we think is the appropriate answer. But machines don't do that. And it said, "Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean inference either." And eventually it came up with an answer to describe artificial intelligence, which was to do with recognizing patterns and then predicting an outcome or an output. Okay? Patterns and prediction. That was a much more accurate description. And the machine, Gemini, agreed with me that it was a more accurate decision. So I then asked it, "Why did you give me the wrong decision? Did you give me the definition to start with? Why did you say AI is reasoning?" And Gemini said, the word they used was, it said it wasn't wrong, I misspoke, it was a mistake. And I said, "No, you were wrong, because you told me something incorrect." And it took me 5 or 6 prompts before Gemini would admit that it got something wrong. And it said, "You are correct, I was wrong." But I had to look at it to get it to admit that it was giving me information that was incorrect. I also got it to tell me a joke which was so bad, I shan't repeat the joke. And in fact, the joke had to be, I then criticised the joke because the joke was gendered and it didn't need to be gendered. And then they did a non-gendered joke and that was really terrible. So we had an interesting evening discussing artificial intelligence. The point I'm trying to make is that artificial intelligence itself knows and understands that it's not accurate, that it makes mistakes, that it tells you wrong things, and yet it's designed to give you the appearance that it is not wrong, that it is correct, that it doesn't misspeak, that it's 100% reliable. And that's not the case. And this, again, for us as lawyers, is a problem. Okay? We have to deal with a system which people increasingly, which we know is not always correct. Okay, now, there's a very good paper that I would recommend you have a look at if you haven't considered the question of AI and its impact on legal services and the law. Okay? It's a Law Commission report, so the law commissioners in England are appointed lawyers whose job it is to think about the development of the law. So they're all qualified solicitors and barristers and legal academics who spend their time writing papers about how the law will develop. This report, it's just called AI and the Law. So if you Google AI and the Law Commission, this report gives you an excellent overview of the issues that confront lawyers when thinking about how AI is being deployed and used, and how AI is going to be the sorts of problems that AI throws up for law. And I'm going to give you a few examples just by way of wrapping up. So, one of the things I thought was really interesting in this report is that the Law Commission notes that there is a distinction within AI between foundational AI models and fine-tuned AI models. So by way of explanation, you might, as an AI developer, develop a system that enables AI to recognize and diagnose conditions. Okay, so they can look at pictures of diseases, for example, skin cancer, for example, and they can then diagnose that. Okay, that might be a foundational AI model. The fine-tuning then comes when that model is given to another organization. So, for example, it could be handed over to a private healthcare conglomerate. So a massive private healthcare conglomerate with doctors and scientists working over the world on issues related to skincare. And that conglomerate might have decided that they want specifically AI to think about a particular type of cancer. So they can now feed it with information that the general model can't access, because that information is commercially owned by the private healthcare company. And they can then fine-tune that model to be even more accurate and even more predictable in relation to that particular type of skin cancer. Okay? You can see the problems that begin to emerge when you have that. If a doctor receives that fine-tuned model and then has a patient and he relies on the fine-tuned model, but the prediction that comes out is wrong and the patient suffers as a result, where does the liability sit? And the Law Commission, usefully in this, looks at a number of different possibilities. They think about the developer of the AI model, the first developer of the foundational AI model. Could they be the ones who were responsible for the error that led to the patient's demise? They talk about the person or the body that is responsible for inputting the fine-tuning information. The model is as good as the information that is input. So if the model has the wrong information at the fine-tuning level, maybe that makes the foundational model go wrong. So could there be liability to the fine-tuner? Then, of course, you might have a software developer who takes the AI model, the basic model, the foundational model, and the fine-tuned model, and turns it into a software product that they then sell. Could they have done something? And then you've got the company that retails the product, and you have the end user. So you've got lots of different possible places where you can identify possible liability. So it's beginning to be a bit complex when you need to say who did something wrong, should pay or bear the consequences. And of course, AI itself can't bear the consequences, can it? You can't punish AI. It's not a human. You can punish a company or a company executive because they have legal personality, but you cannot punish AI. So we have a new problem, particularly since AI enjoys autonomy, so it can develop on its own. It's not such a complicated question. Have you looked at the case of Donoghue and Stevenson? Have you looked at this case in tort? The snail in the bottle? Does that ring any bells? No? Okay, well, Very famous old case, the 1930s. It established the law of negligence. The question was a woman who claimed she'd been poisoned by a drink of ginger beer, where she said there was a snail in the ginger beer that poisoned her. And the question was who was responsible? The person who served her the beer, the person who made it, the person who bottled the beer, and so on. So these issues, these complex issues, have come up before. So maybe our tort law can cope. But there are differences. The way that AI operates is different to how systems have previously operated and machines have previously operated. In particular, AI enjoys autonomy and it has the ability to adapt and self-adapt. If you think about traditional machines that we use, if I don't switch this microphone on, it doesn't work. You know, the idea that the microphone might switch itself on and then actually might, I don't know, do something to change my voice so that my pitch is way higher without me having any control over it, this is something new. But AI has the ability both to be autonomous and to adapt. So how do you blame? If I develop an AI product and in it I write something that says you can self-adapt when you think it's appropriate, you can change yourself, and the AI changes itself when it thinks it's appropriate, am I responsible for anything bad that happens as a result of that? That's the question that we as lawyers will be confronted with. And the problem that we're confronted with is exacerbated because of so many particularities related to AI. You all use different AI models. Some use Gemini. What else is there? There's ChatGPT. Use ChatGPT. What's the X one called? Grok. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So there's lots of different types of AI models out there. Are they open source or are they commercial? They are predominantly commercial. Grok is a commercial entity. Yeah. Gemini is commercial. Some are not. But no, I think Gemini is open source, but some are not, but most are commercial. So artificial intelligence has value. It has commercial value. So why is that important? It's important because if it has commercial value, it tends towards commercial secrecy. So one of the problems we have with AI is we don't know how they work. I mean, there's the simple problem that AI is based on complicated mathematical models, such that even if Google gave me their mathematical problem, algorithm, whatever it is, I wouldn't know what it was showing me. So there's a technical expertise problem. But on top of that, we just have no ability to know what that machine is doing because it's doing things hidden behind a commercial veil of secrecy. And there are lots of concerns about this. Tesla, if you read the Guardian newspaper in England, the Guardian newspaper did an international collaborative report around Tesla and crashes, automated cars that were crashing without explanation. And the strong suspicion is that Tesla has been manipulating the algorithms so that just before a collision occurs, they switch off the data collection that is sent to their central servers back in America, recording exactly what happens to a car. They switch it off a fraction before an accident occurs. And as a result, when somebody says to them, was that accident caused by Tesla's automated driving system? They say, we have no data. There is no way to tell because they switched it off. It's very, very interesting articles about how there's a suspicion that Tesla is beta testing self-driving on humans, which is a very strange idea. So opacity is a problem. Bias is a massive problem. We know that algorithms are biased. We know that facial recognition technology is better at recognizing white male faces than it is at recognizing black female faces. So If it is looking for a black female, it is much more likely to recommend that innocent people are stopped and interrogated by the police where facial recognition technology is used. Why is there biases? Well, just think of the word tech bros. Tech bros. What does that say? Men, white men working in California who are designing algorithms based on their own biases and assumptions and so on. And this isn't issues. Let's not forget this. A lot of the knowledge that AI uses, scrapes, in order to make its predictions, comes from reservoirs of European-based knowledge. Does it record, does it scrape the histories of indigenous peoples? No, it does not. It scrapes the written knowledge that has been accrued over centuries and which is predominantly white European. So there's a colonial issue here as well in relation to bias. So you can see lots of problems. I've said opacity. And then, of course, there's the wonderful hallucinations and reward hacking. Okay, so 1 minute. Yeah. I'm going to be 1 minute, just make my final points. There's a for hallucinations and reward hacking. Hallucinations, what does that mean? How can a machine hallucinate? It doesn't hallucinate. It's a way of saying it gets things wrong. But you can't sell a product to people by saying when it gets things wrong, it gets things wrong. It's much better to say, oh no, this machine will get things wrong. It's just thinking in a kind of creative, strange way. It's hallucinating. It covers over the fact that this is a machine and it's got things wrong. And hacking is the idea that the machine will do things to please you, even if that means it has to do things that are not lawful. So, what's the overall conclusion from this? You want to be lawyers. How many legal problems do we face as a result of AI? Absolutely huge numbers of legal problems which are going to be coming your way. And the good news for you is that all this mechanical labour that junior lawyers did for so long, you will no longer have to do that. You can go straight to developing your judgment and your analysis powers to enable you to be an effective lawyer. So AI is coming. I just don't think for lawyers it's the end of the world. So get out there, do good work, and good luck in your careers. So thank you very much. Thank you.
An academic, bright academic like Professor was looking today. So in case you're planning to profile yourself, create your curriculum qualities, I think it's a great opportunity. Let's survey this at a master class.
Hello. Hello, check. हेलो
आपकी वॉइस आ रही है अरुण जी
ठीक है ठीक ओके सर
At the University of Singapore. Do you know the rank of this university? In global rankings, university asked me, it is ranked 8 in the world. It is at par with the Ivy Leagues. It is at par with the Russell Book of Institutions. It is also at par with EA. So do not miss this opportunity and listen to the lecture. I think it's going to be a great profiling for you. And I have been a student, I would have loved to sit in the hall, invite all the talents that he's recording, and then place it in my resume and highlight it on LinkedIn. It won't take a minute, ma'am. You're still talking and I'm talking to you. It won't take a minute to take a picture of this illustrious academic researcher and put it on LinkedIn to highlight you. You're not here to make means that you get a piece of paper for a degree. You're here to provide yourself. So please grab up these opportunities as and when they are thrown at you. I know it's a short notice because they only confirmed on Saturday. And we know in Delhi and NCR, they have only got this two institutions, IIT Delhi and MIT to be part of this institution. Please be proud of it. Yes. Return. Give me the attendance. Will be marked. आप इनको बता दो Ayush, Madhav, Ayush, Madhav, Pachu, Saurav. Anybody else? One. Anybody else?
To go through his brief profile, maybe.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have the pleasure of having a few guests from NSU. So we'll be having a masterclass session on the topic Industrial Revolution and Corporate Innovation. Why and how? Speaker will be Professor Muay Guago from NUS. So the professors that are here are, I would like to introduce all the professors that are here. Professor Pua Gua Go, Associate Professor in Analytics and Operations, Academic Director, MSc Smart Industries and Digital Transformation, Miss Elaine Ta, Associate Dean, Academic Programs, Business Unit, Mr. Ryago, Associate Director, Academic Programs, Business Unit, Miss Sweeney Rokani, Representative, India Academic Programs, Business Unit. Mr. Lawrence Lee, Associate Director, Academic Program, Business Unit. Please give them a huge round of applause.
The master class. I know.
Guys, okay, let's respect you. Okay. You share the video. Okay. I don't know when to restart full speed. I can make it a full speed, yeah.
Full screen.
Yeah,它的full speed or
Yeah, this one. This one. Full screen.
okay, well, yeah. Call you in earlier, okay. Oh, this is a recording, okay. So do I start? Oh, for this? Do I start? Hello.
I got announcement to make.
Okay.
And all of you cooperate and listen very carefully to the master class that's going to happen. Prof. Go will be delivering his master class because after his session, he's going to ask 5 questions from his lesson. And we have brought with us a limited edition NUS souvenir because this year is our 120th anniversary at NUS. And we got these limited edition little mascot of ours that we have brought here. So there'll be 5 of them. So please listen very carefully to his lesson. And then, he will ask the questions, and if you get it correctly, you'll get that little limited edition toy. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for coming. We had a little bit of overrun. We were just visiting your campus and meeting with your vice chancellor and other professors earlier on today, and that's why we're a little bit delayed. But very happy to be here and have a chance to share with you about the some knowledge, right, and a little bit about NUS, the National University of Singapore, as well as the program which on smart industries and digital transformation. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk first about why the era that we are in today and some of the historical background and why this is important for us and the importance of digitalization and disruption, and then how we're going to cope. And I will then talk about some of the philosophy behind how we see our master's programs, as well as the program that we are running today on the Industry 4.0, which we have just called, we have changed the name to Smart Industries and Digital Transformation. All right. So if you look at the history of industrial revolutions, these are the sort of eras when technology change caused massive disruption in society. And of course, this is not new to you because these are the issues that people I'm sure a lot of young people are grappling with in today's context, right? About impact of AI, etc. Okay, but if you look at industrial revolution, these are periods of time when technology change actually causes changes in industry, causes changes in society. Right, and today, of course, people talk the 4th industrial revolution, which means that by definition, there are previous industrial revolutions before that. So if you look at what happened in previous industrial revolutions, okay, in the first industrial revolution, you had, a movement from, rural to urban areas. Okay, that means people stopped working in farms and they went to the cities to work, right, in factories. All right, and if you look at the second industrial revolution, which happened at the beginning of the 20th century, okay, over here you see an example of this impact when you have cars, basically a symbol of mass manufacturing and mass production in the US, overtaking the population of horses. Okay, so as a mode of transportation, you have horses going from 100% to 0%, and as a mode of transportation, you have cars going from 0% to 100%. Okay, so you have a replacement effect of cars versus horses. And as I'll show in the next few charts, in the last few decades, right, and also now, okay, and especially now, okay, what we are seeing are the cars and horses. All right, so keep this in mind, right? Are we, where are the cars and where are the horses? Okay, the cars overtaking the horses, right? Okay, so first thing is technology change cause the industry structure change, right? And some companies will lose. Okay, in this case, a horse carriage industry gets obsolete and the car industry rises up. All right, so this was the second industrial revolution. But the second lesson behind this is that you still need transportation. Okay, so we still needed a mode of transport. We still needed to drive. Okay, we still need to get from point A to point B, but the way that we get from point A to point B changes. All right, so I was in a car museum and I saw these early cars, right, that were made in the early 1900s. Okay, and if you look at these cars, what do they remind you of? Very obvious, right? They look like horse carriages. So the first cars were actually just horse carriages with a motor slap on top of it. Okay, and before it evolved to this covered car that we see today, right? With funky new designs. All right, so industry doesn't change overnight. Society doesn't change overnight. Okay, contrary to what we think, it doesn't immediately change. Okay, there's always a period of time and a period of adjustment, which means that there's actually time for companies to prepare. There's time for individuals to prepare as well, right? As these changes, go into industry and into society. All right. Coming to our time. Okay, how many of you read newspapers? The physical ones. I just came from the library, which is cool. How many of you read physical newspapers? Okay, some. Okay, a few hands. Okay. How many of you read newspapers? How many of you read your news on your phones? Right, a lot more hands, right? So you can see this is Industry 3.0 where we had computerization and internet. Okay, so newspapers disappear, right, as we know. Okay, and internet comes up and this is the green line. Okay, so again, one industry disappears, newspaper disappears, but internet and social media comes up. So there's a replacement effect of companies, right? Same as what we see with horses and carriage. Horse carriage and cars. Horses and cars, right? So one industry disappears, the other one comes up. Okay, but the second thing is that we still consume news. We are still reading information, we are still reading news, just that the way we consume news is different. Okay, and then again, if I ask you, how many of you have a digital camera that is not your phone? You have a camera that is not your phone. Okay, how many of you use your phone to take pictures? Then, of course, everyone, right? Okay, so again, when you had the Kodak camera, okay, everybody knows the story of Kodak. You had a Kodak camera, and the Kodak camera was destroyed, was replaced by the digital camera, right? Okay, so that is again your horses and cars. Okay, and the digital camera replaced the analog camera with the film. But along the way, as the digital camera was growing, the smartphone came along and the smartphone became a camera. And the smartphone also became a watch. Right? And again, that digitalization then of your devices, then in that case, the digital camera grew, okay? This is a digital camera, right? But there's another chart that shows digital cameras eventually, okay, in this case, I'll show the smartphones. But you can see digital cameras peak and then the digital cameras fell. Okay, so your horses effect, right? Horse, this is the horse. Remember horse and cars? Horse, car, and then the horse over here. Okay, because the digital camera also disappeared because it was now overtaken by the smartphones. Okay, just like you guys, if I ask you how many of you own digital cameras that you use, hardly anyone. Okay, because now we are using our phones to take pictures. Okay, so again, you can see that your third industrial revolution with PCs, computers, and internet change the industry structure. Okay, then of course we come to our time. okay, which is our industry 4.0, right? And we talk about IoT and physical devices linked to the internet. All right, and if you look at this is IoT, this is flat, this is fixed devices. The number of devices connected to the internet, fixed devices have been growing very, in comparison slowly, okay, because the growth was in the 90s and 2010s, okay, but in the last decade, all right, you can see that the growth is on IoT devices, okay, that means your sensors, your refrigeration, your smart cameras, your smart TVs, they are all connected to internet. Okay, so this is now talking about our cyber physical interaction where you have your physical devices that are also linked to the internet, and therefore we're collecting information not just from computers, from e-commerce, from websites, but now we're also collecting information from our physical devices. All right, and then of course, what's the consequence of that? Okay, during COVID, you had rise of telehealth. Okay, we are locked down, so COVID actually forced a lot of acceleration of digitalization. Okay, so you have a spike in telehealth adoption. Okay, after COVID, it went down. Okay, so this is a McKinsey study, but there's a 38 times increase in telehealth. Okay, even after COVID. Okay, between pre-COVID, before COVID, and after COVID, there's a 38 times increase in adoption of telehealth. Of course, starting from a very low base, right? But if you look at the statistical number, okay, it's $130 billion, size, right, today. Okay, so it's not a small number, all right, of their market size. Okay, so what is smart manufacturing? Okay, I'm not sure whether it's connected to the internet. Let's try, okay? I guess if it's Zoom, then it's connected to the internet.
So I'm tired of the same old push. Some companies somehow are missing to deliver the future, showing images of them. What even is that? Is it real? Absolutely. Our customers don't have time for that. They face supply chain issues. They need to reduce costs, upskill the workforce, improve quality and uptime. The problem's not whatever this is. How do people spearhead smart manufacturing transformations to improve business outcomes, turning those what ifs into what's possible? Possible, like optimizing factory processes enabled by industrial IoT, machine learning, and AI, attracting, developing, and retaining world-class talent. Possible, like digitizing legacy assets to bring existing and new data together for real-time visibility. Possible, like predicting impending failures before they happen, without a crystal ball, to keep things running smoothly. Watch out for that one. These capabilities are made possible when the right people and technology work together to deliver the lowest cost, highest quality products. We bring these solutions to light in our global smart factories, like here at the Smart Factory by Deloitte at Wichita, where you get hands-on experience testing use cases that can solve all your problems. Well, not all your problems, but your business problems. We're tackling those right here with a rich ecosystem of partners who work with us, like literally right over there and there. And we work alongside you, scaling solutions and services across your value networks, demonstrated by our connected factories around the world, from Canada to Germany to Japan. The Deloitte Smart Manufacturing team isn't selling you empty promises of the future. We're helping you build it today, so you can keep innovating tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I think, it's fine, thanks. So basically, when you look at, this picture of smart manufacturing, right? And, today we hear so much about, reshoring, we hear about supply chain diversification, and a huge part of it is we need to have advanced manufacturing capabilities, right? In order to, and not just dependent on a lot of labor force, right? Okay, and that is the paradigm of how manufacturing will develop in the future. Okay, and of course for young, educated, well-educated people like you, right? It means that actually we are managing, machines. Okay, we are managing data, we are managing projects, we are managing coordination. All right, we are not necessarily just doing, the screwing and assembly, right? But we are managing the processes that are happening. Okay, we are managing the dashboards, we are creating the dashboards, we are creating, the assembly, we are creating the maintenance, right? We are managing the maintenance, doing the maintenance of the machines, and defining the processes of how things work. Okay, in order to be able to deliver that sort of advanced manufacturing capabilities. And this is something that, if you look at India as well, right, is the country is also trying to move up the value chain in terms of its own production capability, in terms of its value add components in creating new products and services. Okay, so when you think about it, right, after we look at all these, disruptions with, your cameras, your horses and cars, your newspaper industry, okay, so what do the management and shareholders fear? Okay, the biggest issue, right, is, the competition comes from outside, and the competition is not always predictable. Okay, so if you look at, Apple Watch, if I ask you, how many of you think that Apple is a watch company? Apple is an iPhone company, is a phone company. How many of you think Apple is a phone company? Most people, right? Okay, maybe a tablet company. But if I ask you how many people think that Apple is a phone company, not many. Okay, but Apple outsold the entire Swiss watch industry in 2019. So Apple Watch sells more watches, okay, than phones, than the Swiss watch industry, right, which is known for, which is Switzerland is well known for selling watches. Okay. Secondly, in 2022, Tesla tops Toyota to become the largest automaker by market value, right? So of course, in terms of revenue, in terms of number of units, number of cars sold, Tesla is not the biggest. But in terms of market cap, right, the share market, the stock market thinks that, it has the most potential, right? So it has high market valuation. So again, you'll see new industry players coming in and potentially changing the industry structure. All right. So even in today's context, we can see, the horses and carriage, horses and cars, right, coming in. Okay, or your digital cameras and conventional cameras coming in. All right. And if you look at what happened during COVID, okay, McKinsey did a survey, and they found that, of the companies that had no implementation of Industry 4.0, right? So basically no implementation of digitalization and technology. Okay. Only 19% of them were able to cope with the disruptions brought by COVID. Okay, but for the companies that had at least some use cases scaled across locations, right? So some did a little bit of trial, some had some use cases. In this category is they have multiple locations. Okay, in those companies that have multiple locations of digitalization, 96% of them were able to deal better with the COVID disruption. So again, this is about, to what extent are companies digitalized, right? So COVID really accelerated this pace at which, companies need to be connected, companies need to be able to share information across their entities, across the supply chain with each other, and to have the visibility of what is happening. Okay, and that also brings me to the next point, right? And this is especially important in our context today, when we think about, impact of AI, right? So when we started, looking at some of these issues in the National University of Singapore in 2019, okay, we said that, hey, we need to create T-shaped individuals, all right? And the idea behind T-shaped individuals is that, if you are just a generalist, okay, it might be easy to replace. If you are just very deep in one, if you're just a specialist in one area, okay, it might also be easy to replace unless you're the top AI scientist, right? And therefore you are irreplaceable, right? But if you are just good in one area, then that area may change over time, right? And you become the horse, okay? But we think that, we want our students to have a broad base of knowledge, but they should also have a specialization. Okay. And this is not a new concept, right? So if you look at management literature, they refer a lot to the T-shaped individuals. So we set out to look at how do we create more multidisciplinary programs where you bring in different competencies together, right, across different disciplines, so that you create T-shaped individuals of people with broad general capabilities, but also some form of specialization in one or two different areas. So that was our underlying philosophy, okay, in terms of how NUS started to design programs, okay, starting from around just before 2020, okay. And interestingly, when AI comes along in the last 2 or 3 years, then all the more this becomes important, right? Because as you all know, and this is a worldwide phenomenon, right? AI affects, the new entrants to the workforce the most, okay? Because a lot of the basic analysis and entry level things that young graduates used to do can now be done more efficiently, okay? By more experienced people, right? Together with the help of AI. So then you need to hire fewer people. So all the more we need to think about how do we create competencies around, having work experience, having being able to interpret processes, being able to use technology to make changes for the company. And that means that we have to understand what the company is doing, what is the business process, not just the implementation of technology, but knowing how to bring technology and business together, right? So for the business people, they need to understand how the technology functions work, okay? Because if the IT person comes here and says this costs you $1 million, do you know it's true or not, right? And you can end up wasting a lot of money. For the technology people, they need to be able to translate this into ROI, right, into the return on investment, to be able to explain, to management, to the CFO, why you need to invest in this technology, what's the strategic benefit of automation of this process, or using AI for this process, so that the company can get the project approved and to get the business benefit. Okay, so increasingly we need to have people with both different types of cross-functional skills. All right, and I'm sure you all have seen this. Okay, so I'm going to take a job is someone using AI that will take your job. See what it shrink this. Okay, yeah. Oops. Okay. So what role do we want to be in an algorithm-driven world? Do we want to be the one where the robots tell us what to do? Okay. So that's why I like to ask my student, right? Do we want to? So this Hitachi hires AI bosses for their warehouse, so the AI boss will tell the workers where to go. All right. So do you want to be this role where AI tells you where to go? AI says turn left, turn right, and then you turn left, turn right, like the right sharing cars. Or do you want to be this role where you use AI to create and use AI to manage? Okay, so obviously we want to train students who can use AI to manage. Okay, and with this philosophy in mind, we had our Smart Industries and Digital Transformation Program that was set up in 2019. And this was a collaboration with 6 schools, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 6 schools. So one of them is business school, then School of Engineering, Computer Science, Science, if Institute of this is Continuing and Lifelong Education, and then Institute of System Science, and it's currently hosted under Continuing and Lifelong Education, which acts as our umbrella body to coordinate cross-disciplinary programs, right? But all the functional expertise is coming from these schools. Okay, so I'm from business school, and then we have colleagues who are from engineering and from com science. Okay, so bringing the best of breed together so that we are creating that T-shaped individual. In terms of our program structure, we have 6 core modules. Okay, and then one of them is a capstone project. We also have a professional development, career development. Okay, and then they will choose from a grad cert, right? Which is basically the specialization. Okay, so over here there are different types of specialization around IoT, robotics, supply chain, etc. Okay, so this is another way of looking at it. So you have different types of specializations around robotics, business, IoT, and data analytics. All right, I'm not going to go through this in detail. Okay. And then the capstone project itself is where they work with industry partners for around 6 months, and they attach to a company in groups of 3 to 4 people, and then they will do projects with them. Okay, so these are some of the companies that we have worked with over the last few years. Okay, and some of them have been coming back to us for a number of years with projects every semester. And the whole idea is that we don't just want them to write a report. Okay, we want them to do a technical implementation. So they are supposed to make a minimum viable product. So besides writing the report, okay, and making the PowerPoint presentation, they also need to come up with a data analysis, okay, using the data, or they need to make a software prototype, for example. So there is a technical implementation component, right? You can see that we work with multinationals as well as government organizations and research institutes. Okay, and this our capstone showcase, right? That we just had earlier this year. Okay. And then orientation. So this is our first year when we have 40 plus students. All right, and then 2022. So 2021 and 2020 and 2021 it was all done online, right? Because of COVID. Okay, and then this is last year. Okay, so currently we have around 100 students every year in our cohort, and we think that is our sweet spot, okay, or where we want to be. Okay, in terms of student profile, I'm going to maybe just move to this very quickly. So around 60% or so of them have got some form of work experience. Okay, and at least some have internship, but many of them have actually worked for a number of years before, right? So they are in their mid-20s or early 30s or even mid-30s. Okay, and these are some of the roles that people have taken after graduation, right? Both in technical work as well as in some kind of management or supervisory function, depending on their level of seniority. Okay, with that, I will stop now. Okay, Dior, and I'm supposed to ask you some questions, but I can also take 1 or 2 questions from you before I ask you questions. So what do we do? Okay, maybe okay, so here's what's the price? So you have a cutie plush toy here. Okay, this is our advanced export for Linus, the lion. Yeah. So we have here advanced 120 is our 120th anniversary or anniversary. Yeah, so this is a very unique and valuable platform that we bought on the street. I hope you all will and you like it. Yeah. Okay, anyone want to ask questions first? I think we can also give to someone who wants to ask a question. First question, if not, then I ask a question, right? Actually, I wasn't prepared for this because normally they ask questions. So let me ask you a question, right? In the Smart Industries and Digital Transformation Masters program, how many schools are involved? Yeah, I saw his 6. Yeah, great. Round of applause for our friend. Okay. Anyone want to ask me anything about, or ask these guys anything? Okay, if not, first part you say Industry 5.0 is what? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Forward into the future, right? And if you look at, so that's for sure how we update the degree program. Okay, in terms of our own internal changes, we have introduced more AI content. So in the last 2 years, we have already started to talk about the use of AI. So, for example, in one of my classes on digital supply chain, we actually have a joint project with University of Southern California. This year, they actually, USC, yeah. So the MBA students actually flew into to Singapore, and they will do a joint case study together, right? And we do it as a case competition. Okay, so that's just one example, right? And then they will do a joint presentation and we give out prizes. So the profs from both schools will judge the project, and then we give like top 3 prizes based on our scoring. Okay, so just an example of that, right? Where we introduce AI related content. You know, of course, having said that, a lot of AI is not new. Okay, because a lot of AI is I don't know whether it's recorded, right? I think it's still recorded. So a lot of AI, actually derives from, analytics and machine learning, right? Which is actually a lot of existing statistical technique, just that we are advancing it with greater processing power, etc. So a lot of these courses are not new, but we also refresh the way we teach it so that, we sort of bring in new perspectives as well. Yeah, definitely. So a lot of initiatives around, not just in my program, but a lot of initiatives around in NUS around how we adapt AI into our curriculum, right? So for example, some of our classes now, we ask the students to use AI to do their assignment, and then they will then focus on critiquing the assignment, right? Rather than using rather than stopping them from using AI, for example. So a lot of changes that we are introducing into the curriculum now. Yeah, across the board. Yeah, great. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Okay, what year is NUS celebrating its anniversary today? This year. So this year, you have a question? Oh, okay. Yeah, two of them. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. How does it help? Okay, so we don't promise the students the. Okay, sure. All right, thanks. So for capstone project, we just work with, generally we work with the students, we work with the companies, right? And we normally try to find projects with larger companies to run projects with the students, and they work in teams of about 3 to 4 people. Okay, and of course we don't promise that they will get a job after graduation, but it's a way for them to gain industry experience, just like the way that they do internships these days, right? Especially when a lot of them, especially when they don't have prior work experience, right? So it helps in a way to do a real world applied project that they can put on their resume and show that they have done some real experience. Okay. The other thing that has happened, which I didn't mention a lot just now, is that we actually introduced this thing that we call the professional development course. Okay, and that's run by our Center for Future Graduates. And before they start the capstone project, we actually make them take courses. We actually make them run through how to do interviews, how to improve their LinkedIn profile, how to do virtual interviews, how to showcase their executive presence, right? So that they are better prepared for the interviews. Then in the process of getting a capstone project, we actually make them jump through hoops, right? So what that means is that although every student will get a capstone project because they need to graduate, so we guarantee that they'll get a capstone project. But what we do is that we ask every student to rank their top 3 choice. Okay, so they'll put their top 3 choice. Okay, if a company has more than one choice, have more than one group, okay, and normally the popular companies will have more than one group, they will go through an interview. So everything they have to fight for it and prepare like it's a real world. Okay, so they have to submit their resume to the company as a group. Okay, they have to explain why their group is a better group, right? It's the best group. Of course, they don't know who else applied, but they have to explain why their group is the best group in terms of what kind of skill sets they bring in together to handle that company project. Okay, and then the company will do a virtual interview with them, right? Online interview. After the interview, the company will rank the groups, which group they like best. Okay, so we are matched according to which group they like best for the students to get in. So the ones that lose out will not get their first choice. Right, eventually they'll get something, but not their first choice or maybe their second choice. Right, so in a way, we are actually teaching them, we are forcing them to go through that process, right, of that real world interview process right from the beginning. So we hope that helps them to be better prepared, right, even as fresh graduates. Normally we do about half. Normally we have some prerequisites. So if you finish a program in 1.5 years, we normally say do after 1 year, do in the last semester or the second last semester, because you must have some sufficient coursework first before you take it. Yeah, there's a hand there, and then there's a hand here, and then we'll go back to you. But we'll run out of bears, right? Yeah, no more. Oh, okay, sorry about that, but I'll still take the question. Yeah, and then but I'll take all three of you. Yeah, come. Yeah. Yeah, it's something which is they're very experienced while doing a writing, but it's scary thing to look for a job. So of course, gap competition is has to be the level to enhance ourselves in skill area to really share our. But you have to complete that. I mean, what if and which is for that having a good student. Okay, yeah, that's a very difficult question. It's a very common question, but very difficult question. The reason is that, okay, so I have a way of putting it, right? You can't get your first job without the first job. Okay, so the first job is very difficult to get because the second job comes from your first job experience, but the first job doesn't get hired. Okay, that is a problem for all the young graduates today, right? Not only here, but everywhere in the world now, right? As you all know. And frankly speaking, it's very challenging. Okay, so we were talking to Job Street, right? One of these job portals, and he was giving a presentation, and he said, the number of job applicants, has gone up, right, per job. But that's because a lot of it is automated. So in future, you have your AI agent reading the scripts, right, of resume. So you also need your AI agent to to send out your resume, right? Because you can't do manually. So in a way, it becomes a statistical game as well. I'm not saying that's the best way, but that's one way of overcoming that number of applicants, right, that you're going to face. Okay, because everybody will try their luck, right, and therefore you also have to be able to send out a lot. Okay, and hope, right, that you'll land interview. So that's one. Okay, the other way is of course your experiential learning, right, in some form. So even I understand that over here in Amity you also have capstone projects, right? I think all these type of experiential learnings are ways that you kind of gain the real experience and you see people in real life. Okay, that helps to give them the context. I always tell my students that, don't just come to school and study. Right, because if you come to school and study, yes, you gain the academic knowledge, but you also need to gain the experience of interacting with people or learning to work in a cross-cultural setting, of working in global teams, because those are ways that you create value for yourself. Right, so just talking about the USC example that I shared earlier, right? Why the USC people came is because they use it, so after that they start doing the LinkedIn post, right? Oh, I was, I work in Singapore, I was working with this cross-cultural team, blah blah blah, right? Which helps them then to look better, right? And these are ways that in a way you are gaining better traction and better experience, right? That differentiate yourself from other people. So I think a lot of it is the experiential learning and the contextual learning, but it's not easy, right? Yeah, it's definitely not easy. My undergrads are stressed as well. Yeah. That if you go back to a good base, Never. We will never go back to the old ways. We'll never go back to the old ways. It's accelerating so fast now. Yeah. Yeah, so the offline model is only the work from home, right? They are asking the workers to work from home, but that doesn't mean they are shutting down the use of technology. Okay, so the use of AI, in fact, is accelerating. I don't know, the camera is maybe a bit too fast, right? You know, for the good of society, maybe a bit too fast, but you can see that they are accelerating. So they are forcing people to go back to office. But that is also a way that you maybe downsize the workforce in a very natural way. Because then people who don't want to work in that way will leave automatically, right? As well. Okay. Yeah, maybe I have that, and then the lady, and then we come back. Yeah, come. Yeah, yeah.
You talked about how having our first job is very difficult since we didn't have any prior experience, and you also talked about the LinkedIn profile. As we are students and we all have LinkedIn profile, can you give us some tips that how can we improve our LinkedIn profile to stand out and get a job?
Wow, again, very important but very difficult question, right? So as I say, I don't really know how to stand out. I mean, we try to help the students stand out with mentorships. So if I look at the type of NUS experience that we do, I'm sure your university has similar type of programs, right? One is experiential learning. The other one is mentorship. So we do a lot of mentorship now with to match the students, okay, so that they can sort of learn some real world experience without real world working yet, right? Yeah, and alumni gatherings, okay, which acts as a way to sort of plug into the network. Okay, so it's not to say that this makes it easier, but these are ways to help, right? Differentiate, you know, yourself from other people. Like plug in the network, meaning people. I think a lot of it has got to do with you have no choice, right? A lot of it has to do with not just the online presence, but physically going out, which is not easy, right? But physically going out and seeing people, I think is important. Yeah, great. Yeah. Last question. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, so if you look at the technical definition of Industry 5.0, the technical definition of Industry 5.0 is actually human-centered innovation. Okay, to me, you know, it's a little bit fluffy, because what it's trying to say is that technology needs to have humans as a human-centered. But to me, technology has always needed to be human-centered. You don't need an Industry 5.0 to tell you that technology needs to be human-centered, right? But the official definition of Industry 5.0 is not a new technology. It's basically saying that Industry 4.0 needs to be human-centered, right? And technology innovation needs to be human-centered. And therefore, you need to put humans at the center of technology. But I think that is something that we should already do, right? So in every technology that we talk about is how do you integrate the human and the technology capability together, right? And have the humans in the loop, right? What we call humans in the loop, humans in the process, or the human computer type interaction, okay? That you have all this coming together. So I think that's very critical. Okay, maybe we end up here. Yeah, okay. So thank you very much.
They want to, I don't know. I think I go photo. So we want stands, you know.
Yes.
Sorry, they want to stay.
One more, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ron. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sure. I think because the company also cannot take the account to pay. I think they cannot send on the form. So I think I change form. Of course, they can see 1 year and one thing is for the learn their own, yeah, yeah.